Welcome to Wining and Dining with Jim White. It's the program devoted solely to introducing you to the great women and men who create the flavors you love. And one of our favorite chefs is here with us from one of our favorite restaurants. You know it, in Oak Lawn, Dallas, Parigi, and Janice Provost. Janice, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on the show, and I can't wait to hear about what's coming up at Parigi, and you've been taking great trips and everything, so stand by just a moment. We'll get right to you. But also with us, our guest gourmet, Bud Kennedy, is back with us. You know, and the thing I like about Bud is he's always working. When you switch over to Bud now, Jimmy, and let's see him. He's been diligently typing away, probably getting his Eats Beat column ready for the Star-Telegram.
Responding to some readers who want to know where to go, or what's best, or who want to tell me about somewhere they went that they didn't like as much as I did.
Can we get in front of the line for the readers just for a second? Sure. With all due respect, you can keep texting or emailing or tweeting. But we have maybe a Fort Worth find for our wining and dining list.
Well, and this is, you and I talk about the great Texas foods, and we talk about barbecue and all the great restaurants. But there's a restaurant that's in East Fort Worth, kind of between Fort Worth and Arlington, that is well worth your attention. It's a woman-owned barbecue restaurant. So first of all, you have a female pit master, which is not very common in the business. But what Natasha Smith does at her restaurant, the name of it is Lady and the Pit. So the lady and the smoke pit, the lady and the pit. And she has barbecue, brisket, and ribs and chicken. But she also has a lot of home cooking and soul food cooking. She has chicken fried steak, fried chicken, fried catfish, 7 or 8 vegetables every day, greens, mac and cheese. So it combines a good barbecue restaurant with a good soul food restaurant. And it's in a former pizza place, that's converted to a little, but it's one of these charming little homespun restaurants. Natasha Smith grew up in Fort Worth. She actually ran a barbecue restaurant on Padre Island for several years, and then moved back to Fort Worth. So it's a female pit master if you like supporting female restaurateurs, someone who's trying to get up every morning and put all the meat in the pit every day and crank out some good barbecue. Daniel Vaughn from Texas Monthly, our good friend, the barbecue snob, was there this week tweeting about the chicken fried steak. So Lady in the Pit is on Handley Drive at the corner of Meadowbrook Drive in East Fort Worth, east of Loop 820.
That's perfect. And of course, throughout this series of shows for this month, Bud Kennedy is going to be with us with all kinds of great Fort Worth finds. And we even have a special episode just devoted to him, so we can talk about all the great things that he covers all around Tarrant County for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and for his Eats Beat column. And Janice, we learned today that you and your husband, Roger, have a connection with Bud in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
He signs my paycheck. It's very important.
We're going to have a lunch date at Lady in the Pit.
And I knew that he had a restaurant connection, but I never knew which restaurant.
Now you need to come over. You need to come try us.
But it's good to see you. Welcome home. You've been traveling a lot, and we had a little trouble. Thank you for getting us on your schedule.
Oh gosh, I was happy to come in today, and I got back Sunday and hit the ground running. So
were you in Paris again?
Of course, if I go to Europe, I go to Paris. But I was actually the purpose of the trip was for a friend getting married, and so it was a happy celebration. And then we made a little vacation out of it. Went to southern Italy, Sicily, and that region, which we'd never been to. And then Positano, and then ended up in Paris for a few days. So
that's perfect. Now you I think you and Roger get an apartment when you're there, and really kind of try to feel like you're at home.
Absolutely. The first part of the trip, we were traveling in Sicily. We did a hotel, and then when we hit Positano, the friends that were getting married had rented a villa, and I cannot even tell you. This place was amazing. 1700s it was built, and it was just expansive, and the views were incredible over the little harbor right there looking over Positano. And then when we went to Paris, we got an apartment. We always do that so that we can kind of get to know the neighborhood and feel like a local if it's only for 5 days or 4 days or 3 days or for a day, whatever.
Yeah. It's so much better than having room service and the bellhop.
Well, there's something to be said for that too.
And
especially when you go in and you've got a lot of luggage and there's no elevator or lift, as they call it, and you're on the third floor, French apartment style, which is the fourth floor, and there's little winding stairs. But you definitely get your exercise.
Well, there is the downside to that. But the upside, of course, is it's always kind of keeping fresh menu items and ideas in your mind, and even kitchen implements and accoutrement for the restaurant that you bring back to Parigi from your trip.
Actually, it's funny you just said that. This is not from France, but I brought y'all a present. May I?
Oh, of course.
My goodness.
There's a present?
Yes, there's a present. Well, when you come to someone's house, you bring them a gift, right? So I might have an obsession with mandolins.
I heard about that.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you or not. But in any case, this is a Kyocera. I'm not doing any kind of advertising for them because they quit making them. So I bought 300
That's
of
what
them.
I heard. I was going to ask you if you really
one
have.
for you and one for you.
Oh, look at that.
And the reason is because they're ceramic, they break. And so we use them at the restaurant a lot. And that way we've got backup for a little while at least.
This is wonderful. Now, I had one that Vicki got that it was very complicated and had all of these moving parts, and it really resembled a guillotine. I was very afraid of it. This one looks very usable.
Well, the one you're talking about is great, especially if you want a julienne. This one is for paper thin slices. So, but I don't know if you cook or not, but I know you love to eat
Kelly
food.
does, yeah.
Okay, good. So this will be a great little tool for you to have as well in your.
Well, of course, and I'll have to go in and see Roger this afternoon because I can't accept gifts from restaurateurs.
Oh.
So I'll have to consult the executive office
Okay.
and see whether this is acceptable.
Hope I haven't messed
See if we
up.
can get a waiver. I hope this is under $50.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some price.
I did get a price break with the 300 that I purchased.
Well,
So.
I'll buy it from you if
Okay.
there is any
Okay,
problem
perfect.
back at the
Perfect,
home office.
perfect.
Okay.
But yeah, I do shop for things that I can't find here. One of the wonderful little silpats I bought that we do these teeny tiny little bundt cakes that Minetta makes for us. You know Minetta Cockerel.
Minetta Cockerel. Indeed.
So I only bought 2 of them last time, and it only makes 12 in each one. So anytime I need a big order of them, because she bakes all of our cakes, she was having to turn them and clean them and start over. So I bought 4 more. So we've got little things like that and tools you can't find here. Plus, it's just fun. I mean.
Now, Parigi is a Dallas legend, a Dallas institution. Most people may not understand that you sort of took over the reins almost sort of mid-course or somewhere in there of its 30-plus year history, because you're certainly not old enough to have had a restaurant for over 30 years. But tell people who don't know the story about how that came about. It's a fascinating evolution for you from corporate world to chef and restaurateur.
Well, I feel very fortunate because I get to do what I love. And I've always enjoyed cooking. Started back when I was in high school. Actually started even before that. My first memory of food is a friend of mine's mother who was from Germany, and she was a really great cook. And learned that you don't have to eat beef well done. Learned that green beans can actually be fresh and don't have to come out of a can. Learned what Nutella was. Some fun things like that. But I always enjoyed cooking, and I always enjoyed the opportunity to give people things that it was a way of showing them my love. So if I could cook for them, I was showing them my appreciation and my love for them. And in turn, their appreciation for enjoying the food was fun. So it's always been part of my life. Excuse me one second. I've got this cough that I...
You've been on airplanes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happens.
Sorry about that.
We have water for you there.
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
I'm going to take a quick
All right.
drink. Okay.
Hydrate.
Yeah, I know. And as I said, I'm getting back into it, so we hit the ground running coming back. Anyway, so love to cook always, and then I went to college, got out of college, and went to work in sales, outside sales. Mm-hmm. So constantly being in front of people and learning how to work with people, learning customer service, that kind of thing. All of the things that I did prior to this, I feel like led me to being in the position that I am, of being able to own a restaurant, and the love for food and the ability to communicate with people, I think, is so important, both my staff as well as the guests and everyone that's involved. So after I was in telecom for 12 years, I was really burned out on it. And my husband said, if you're serious about this cooking thing, why don't you go back to school? So I enrolled at El Centro in their culinary arts program.
Hey.
And El Centro. And then I was actually hired at Parigi because the former chef that I had done a little stint with over at a restaurant called Marty's, which is across the street from or was across the street from where Parigi is. Mm-hmm. She was the executive chef there, and she knew that I loved every time I could get into the kitchen, because I was her catering director over at Marty's. Anytime I could get in the kitchen, I was over there. If I could make family meal, I was in. And so she hired me literally, and I started as a prep cook. I mean, it was peeling vegetables, grabbing whatever we needed from anywhere that we needed it from, and bringing it to her, and just kind of being, what a person does when they start in an entry-level position. And that was about 20 years ago. In June, it was 20 years that I started working at Parigi. She left to go back to Maine. Her name is Melody. Do you remember Melody Wolfert? Yes, yeah. And she has a restaurant in Maine, which is where she's from, called In Good Company. So she moved back there, opened her restaurant, and then I was given the opportunity. The ownership at the time asked me if I would be interested in the executive chef's position. Well, I knew I didn't have the experience. No way. But I did have the business side of things, and I thought, well, if they ever wanted to sell it, I would be interested in that. And so I told them that, and then they continued the search for an executive chef, brought in Abraham Saloom, if you remember and know Abraham, of course. And he was the executive chef. He ran dinners. I ran lunch. I learned so much working with him, and then had the opportunity. They approached me again. They were like, do you want to buy it? And this was after 9/11. And I was like, yeah, I do. I think I'm ready. Same thing still stands, though. I need some hand holding, and Abraham was willing to join me as a partner. And so he and I had the restaurant for about 3 years together. And then he asked me if he could either buy me out or he wanted to go open his own restaurant. And so I said, you know what, I think I'm ready. And that's been, now 15 years, something like that. So here we are.
Fine, how time flies.
Yeah.
But
how do you feel that having a woman as executive chef was received 15 years ago, and has that changed now in Dallas? How are women received now as executive chef?
I was fortunate in that I've had so many female mentors, so it never even even occurred to me.
Yeah, you have a great lineage.
I'm really fortunate in that sense. Not that there aren't wonderful male chef mentors,
but there are
and whatnot.
places that wouldn't have hired you.
I guess I kind of put the blinders on and just went for what I follow. I'm one of those that just believes if you see it, it can happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm fortunate I didn't have any of those obstacles, because I know they do exist. And I'm proud to say we've got 3 women working in our kitchen now, and plus myself. So there's 4 of us, and it's an even playing field. If you do your job, you do it well, then I feel like you're going to have the opportunity for growth. And I do think the doors are a lot more open than they were possibly 15 years ago. But fortunately, I didn't have that, again, because of female chef, and Lisa Kelly as well. Do you know Lisa? She was the opening chef at Hattie's, and she's been all over. She's amazing. Another female chef that's been a mentor. Plus, like I said, Minetta. So I've been surrounded by women that it's never even been an issue for me. So I'm lucky.
Good for you. It's kind of the Hollywood treatment. Write a screenplay.
That's a bad thing to say now.
Yeah.
The Hollywood treatment may not be the right thing to say now, Jim.
Well, I'm just saying, that was what Ben Affleck did, basically, right. And Matt Damon. They couldn't get an acting gig, so they wrote a screenplay and got an Academy Award for that, and then had all the acting gigs they could
and became
ever ask
stars.
for.
And we have all these wonderful self-made women who are
starting restaurants,
coming up, and coming from El Centro, or from the kitchen, or from peeling potatoes, or wherever, and they're now in charge. Yeah, and and the question is, are the doors opening now that once were not open? It seems to me like that it's all wide open now.
I feel like it's all wide open, and I also feel like that the industry, there's more women that want to be in it. So you may have had predominantly a male group of people that were focusing on being in kitchens and that kind of thing, and the women were typically front of the house. A lot of that, I think, has to do with families. It's a difficult position to hold if you've got children at home and you're trying, because it's a 24-hour, especially as an ownership position. Mm-hmm. My alarm could go off at the restaurant at 3 a.m, and I've got to get up and go to the restaurant and make sure everything's okay. And it's happened. Fortunately, knock on wood, it's not happened in a little while. But so it can be challenging to do all of those things and to be able to maintain, being able to be a mother and a wife and all of those things that you need to do as a as a human being. So it's
While you're trying to cook, run a business,
exactly.
do marketing, everything else.
Absolutely.
What was the toughest part for you to learn?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably time management and being able to do things in an order that makes sense, so that you get things done properly and that you're ready for service. And I would say the two things that I think are the most difficult to deal with would be leases. As a business owner, I don't enjoy dealing with the leases. Unfortunately, we just renewed ours, so we're all.
Oh, you're good to go.
Yes,
Okay.
we are good. And then, as with any business, I think employees sometimes, and the challenges and all of the things that are going on with them. And if somebody doesn't show up today, I had a host that called out sick for this evening, so I may be hosting this evening. You never know.
And tell me about what's changed in the time that you've had your restaurant. What's changed about customers and their tastes? You have Sunday brunches, such a big day part. It's taken on a life all its own. What's changed in the time that you've had it?
I think people want to know where their food comes from, and I totally appreciate that, and have been part of the local movement since I started the restaurant. I mean, or since I took over the restaurant, it's been something that's been huge to me. I grew up that way with my mom and dad had a small farm, and I had geese and chickens and bees and all of that stuff. So it's really true to my roots. But I think people want to know where their food comes from. They want to know that it's prepared in a manner that it's fresh, that it's not out of a can, that it's not prepared in advance. They want to know the quality of it. And I've seen that as a continuing trend that is not. I don't think it's a trend anymore. I think it's the way people are in today's world, which is great. Health consciousness of what they are eating, so that it's prepared, so that it's not loaded with fat, or you can have those things that are, but you also have healthy options on the menu. And I think that our customers are very discriminating in what they want, and the way that their customer service and the way that they're treated. Because if they don't get it from Parigi, they can go somewhere else. So that's what I really try and instill in my team is we have a saying of whatever it takes. And if we can make it possibly happen, we will do it. That's
and talk about the family farms, and because one of the conflicts is that as the restaurants in cities want more food from family farms and want regional farms, the city's sprawl is wiping out some of the family farms. When you get east of Dallas, west of Fort Worth, you have fruit and vegetable purveyors who are now housing subdivisions. How far out do you have to go to find the foods you want?
Well, there's a couple of ways that we do it. We have some farms that come to us and bring us product, but then we also have a really wonderful purveyor, Chef's Produce, that sources for us, because it's impossible to go out and get. We don't have the means to get to the farm. They don't have they make deliveries twice a week. So they kind of step in, Chef's Produce does, and they're an aggregator, if you will. So they're purchasing it for all of the other restaurants that have that same buying local mentality. So that's helped a lot. We've got cheesemakers. We've got Valduzin that just sent us a sample box yesterday of some of their new cheeses. So I know what you're saying.
There are a lot of cheesemakers.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Are you still, you grow a lot of your veggies and herbs at the Promise of Peace Garden? Are you still doing that?
Yes.
And the La Bajada group?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
La Bajada is the primary one where we've got a garden plot right now. And Elizabeth Dry is just absolutely amazing. She's the garden manager for the La Bajada garden. And we're ramping up for fall right now, so it's exciting. We're going to have some really wonderful things. We've got radishes and just things that we can grow during the fall months when it's cool but not frozen.
One thing I wanted to ask you, we've got a cooking segment coming up from you, but Parigi was sort of fashioned after the bistros of Paris. Mm-hmm. And so, well, it was, not sort of, it is like stepping into a very upscale bistro in Paris. Because they have both kinds.
Yeah.
But for folks who haven't had the chance to come to Parigi, take us on a little tour, talk about your menu, talk about the restaurant, some of your philosophy for the cuisine and so forth, and we'll take a little tour of Parigi.
Well, Parigi literally means Paris in Italian. So our cuisine is Italian and it's French, but being located here in the United States, and we're such a melting pot, in the United States, that our cultures are all over the place. So if there's an ingredient that we want to try, if there's something that is new to the market, then we certainly can work that in as well and try to. So we change the menu about once a month. And the way that it's laid out is things that, like the trip that I just got back from, for example, there will be components of that will be brought into the menu from the travels that I had from some of the places that I ate. I take more pictures of food than I do of people when I'm on my trips, which is crazy, but it's a great way to get, refreshed and wonderful ideas. So we've got a risotto on the day that changes on a daily basis. We've got a pizza. We also have escargot. So there's your what I'm saying about the Italian and the French. But then we also have, a duca on the menu that's a wonderful, flavorful, we call it duca dust, and it's pistachios and cumin and sesame seeds, and it just adds a punch of flavor. So it's all over the place. We have a lot of fun with it, and we listen to our guests too as to what they want. So if there's something that with the ratatouille that we have on the menu actually was kind of an inspiration from a guest that was in London that had it every day when they were at a restaurant. And ratatouille is a pretty traditional dish, and it's the bounty of summer, though. You've got all of the tomatoes, all of the eggplant, all of the wonderful zucchini, all of the wonderful mushrooms, all of the things that are just beautiful and abundant. And we put it on the menu with a little Texas goat's cheese in the middle of it. And it's with a tiny baguette that we get from Empire Bakery, flying off the shelf. So the menu changes. It's eclectic. We have a lot of fun with it, and it's an open kitchen too, which is great. So you actually get to see what's going on. And I think in the segment that we do with the burrata and tomato salad, you'll see the kitchen. You see everybody and what they're doing at all times.
I think that's a great segue. You've done this before. I think I think it's time to see a little Kiss cooking, and of course by that we mean keep it simple and straightforward, and let Janice show you inside that kitchen at Parigi. Now you had something that really fits the bill for Kiss cooking. Talk about it, please.
Well, tomato mozzarella is what everybody's used to. And in the summer, when the tomatoes are at their peak and you've got basil growing and you've got all of this just abundance, it's one of my favorite things to eat. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take that up a little bit and elevate it with burrata instead of mozzarella.
Oh, okay. Now there may be some people who don't understand the difference.
So this is burrata, and it's still mozzarella. It's just that it's filled with cream. So it's got a little bit more. Do you see how that just kind of pops out like that? And there's different types of it. This one is cream filled. You can have it with other fillings as well. This is our preference, though. We like it, and I think it just goes so beautifully. It's really milky, so it's really got that flavor that's like, and then it's got this smooth, creamy texture that's really yummy too.
That's great, yummy.
You want to try it? You want to taste it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if it won't mess up your
No,
recipe.
I got plenty.
Okay.
Well, we got plenty. I got 2 spoons for that very reason.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, wonderful. Bon appetit.
It's good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it creamy? You see what I mean? Yeah. You get
Very
that lovely milky feeling.
It's funny, we're talking about Italian cheese in a restaurant named after Paris saying Bon Appetito. I guess I should have said Bon Appetit.
Well, I'll take it all. I will take it all. Okay, so again, it's super simple recipe, but with we're going to start with our tomatoes, and we're going to just kind of cut them, and then we're going to arrange them on the plate. It's all about the plating too, because it's so important to have the canvas turned into a beautiful end product with it just
Absolutely.
gorgeous. So I'm just going to cut these into...
What type of tomato is
It's
it?
an heirloom tomato. I'm not
Okay.
sure of the name of this one, but again, in summertime, it is they just are so bountiful. Last year, we went to James Beard, and I had a garden, and we were able to actually bring 4 shoe boxes, is what we call it, worth of our own tomatoes that we used in a salad when we cooked there, which was kind of fun. So we literally were farm to table all the way to New York.
The airport, I guess, was fine with that because you had no metal in your tomatoes.
Well, I did. I went online and looked TSA up and all of that to see what I could in fact take, and it said nothing about tomatoes. And I checked them. So,
That's great.
yeah. So we're just going to cut these guys in half, get some variety of different colors and shapes.
You're also doing some very interesting garden work in communities around Dallas.
Yes, we are. We've got Well, at my house, I've got 3 hydroponics that are full of basil leaves and tomatoes, and we are able to use those for some of our dishes here. And then we also are at La Bajada, which is an urban youth farm over in kind of West Dallas. These actually came from the lady that runs that garden for us, Elizabeth Dry, and this Promise of Peace. Thank you, dear Lamb.
So these are edible flowers?
These are chive flowers.
Okay.
But you'd be surprised. Just a little pop of that white and the little pop of the flower makes, again, it just elevates the dish. Really makes it really pretty. Okay, so we'll just get up to plating it. So it's super simple. Oh, that's what you wanted, right?
Keep it simple and straightforward.
Okay, I got the last 2 S's wrong, but anyway, we're just going to start with a little bit of arugula, and this is some baby arugula. You put it down in little clusters, kind of. I am a big fan of doing things in like a little arc shape. That's my go-to. Everybody kind of has their own that they like, or their preference of the style that they want, but organic, but yet it all works together in the way that we do it. Okay, so put a little of that down, and then we're going to put some of the burrata. And you saw it comes in a ball, but we're just going to actually place it and do it where you can get a little of the burrata, a little bit of the tomato. You could certainly leave it together if you wanted to.
Maybe just cut it off yourself with
Yep.
a dish or a bite. But again, you're going for nice plate appeal, nice composition.
Exactly.
Because as you said before we started, everyone has an Instagram.
Everybody does. Every single person in the world does. And they're not afraid to show it. So I just put some here. My handy dandy tweezers. I need to cut this a little better. Oh, nope.
That's the important part of the food, the taste of it, because we first enjoy the meal with our eyes.
True.
This is just so pretty. I'm always so happy when the summertime is here and the tomatoes are ripe and fresh.
I am as well.
So we have a bit of pesto.
This is pesto. So again, celebrating summer, you got basil that's growing, and I can't keep up with it. I actually last year had so much basil. A friend of mine, Nikki at Asian Mint, I called her because she uses the Thai basil, and it kind of volunteered, meaning it grew up. The seeds blew over into our plots, and she sent her brother over, and they literally a small pickup full of basil. So yeah, so celebrating summer with the basil. So this is literally pesto, and our pesto is made of basil, olive oil. We use walnuts instead of pine nuts, which typically, or I guess from depending on what part of Italy you're in, they use one or the other. But when I took over the restaurant, this was an inherited recipe, so we kind of lived to that. So it's basil, it's olive oil, it's garlic, of course, Parmesan walnuts. Have I forgotten anything? I think that's it.
That sounds pretty good to me.
And all you do is you just put it in a blender, put it in a food processor, whatever. Just give it a whirl, get it to the consistency where it's like this, it's smooth, and then it's just a powerful pack of flavor. So we're just putting a little of that on the plate. I think I've got a walnut not befriending me. Squeeze bottles, another thing. It's such a simple thing, but if you have them, they can make your life so much easier for plating. And you can keep this in the fridge. Get that little nugget out of there. It's making things difficult. But you can keep them in your fridge, and then you can easily just grab it when you need it, and you're set. All right, so I'm kind of layering, as you see. So I'm going to go back now with some more of the beautiful burrata. We just changed our format of our menu here. So lots of dishes are able to be shared. And this is one of them because it's a good amount of burrata that you're getting on this. And certainly one person, I could eat this whole thing, but it's also something that's a nice shareable plate. And we're finding more and more people want to do that when they're dining out, and I think that way they get a lot of different tastes.
Yeah.
They get a lot of different things from a lot of different...
Mine as well.
Yeah.
Vicki and I try never to order the same items from a menu so that we can do that.
We have one couple that comes in, and they eat half of it, and then they switch in mid-meal. So.
We're not quite that democratic. I want my food.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to finish up with a few more of these beautiful tomatoes. Like this.
see this coming together perhaps with a nice connoisseur. What are your thoughts
You
on
could, or rosé.
rosé?
Yeah.
That's a nice thought, sure.
So this is a little micro basil, just to kind of bring it all back tied together. Like that. And then I love a little crunch. I think textures are important. I'm sure you would agree. And so we're going to put some pine nuts, they just are natural together with the burrata and all of that. So we've got a little pine nut action going here. And just sprinkle those here and there. We've toasted them. So all you got to do for that at home is put them on a sheet pan and put them, well, actually I'd say probably put it in a frying pan at home.
Okay.
And just kind of toss them until they get a nice little golden color on it.
Do a nice dry pan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's right. We're going to finish with some of these beauties. And put it on the white so you can actually see it.
Know the source of your flowers before you eat them from the garden.
Yeah, that's a good bit of advice. Oops, that didn't work.
Because you never know about pesticides or things that might have drifted over.
Right. Okay, so we've got our little flower. I know, but do you see how much it just took it to the next level? And then we're going to just finish. This is a little Texas extra virgin olive oil over the burrata, a little of the tomatoes like this. And then last but not least is the Maldon salt, which is our favorite. It's got the big chunk, like crystals in it, and it's flakes. So it still maintains that crunch, but it gives the perfect finish to.
Is it flavor more intense? Is it saltier?
Want to taste?
Well, yeah.
Is it, and I
It's
love
not overpowering.
No,
it's
it's
just
great.
A nice flavorful salt.
So that's it. What do you think?
I think that resembles your logo, the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Janice, thank you.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
That looks wonderful. And it was wonderful because we got to taste it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, we didn't even get to touch on your wonderful role in the community as co-founder of Cafe Momentum. Fabulous job there. That's such an important program. Your ongoing work with, and in fact, Jimmy, would you be on Janice while I'm saying these things, please? Because she's much nicer to look at than I am. And I'm just going to laud her for a second. Say something and the camera will switch. I guess Jimmy has gone to sleep.
Jimmy?
Thank you.
Much better.
All right. Cafe Momentum, co-founder, past president of the Greater Dallas Restaurant Association, your wonderful work with La Dame d'Escoffier, and that's kind of goes back to Bud's point about how things change for women in the restaurant industry. A group of professional women have taken the bull by the horns and said, by golly, we run this show. And you're doing a great job with scholarships, your work with El Centro. You need to come back and be on the show again.
Well, I would be honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Keep up the great work at Parigi. And Mr. Kennedy, Bud Kennedy, we're going to get to you and talk all about Tarrant County and environs that make up your Eats Beat on our next program.
And Jim, I'm already making my list of places I need to go back to in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, Parigi should be at the top of the list. Thank you so much, Bud, for joining us. Thank you, Janice and Parigi. And thank you for joining us. So remember, if anybody asks you what you're making for dinner, tell them reservations at Parigi.